I know you guys were in there during the course of the Indy periods there. A couple guys out. The one thing, not getting too specific, but there's a lot of guys that have come back or come back 10, 12 guys that were really kind of still, they're cleared, but they aren't fully cleared for practice every day. So we're like Powell chose a maintenance program, right? So we're letting them go X number of days. Some of them only go 1 day in a row. Some of them will go 2 or 3 days in a row, then a day off. What I found, I learned this through the NFL side of it, was maintenance is just the ability to, maintain a schedule for an individual player that needs individual results, right? So a maintenance program kind of changes from guy to guy, player to player, and that's what a lot of our guys are going through.
But Jordyn Slaughter posted that he had surgery. What, just giving us an update?
Yeah, so I'd say the last part of the first half of practice yesterday just got rolled up on from behind. Obviously one of those unfortunate scenarios. We really stress and preach to our guys about staying up, and this is a great example of why we want to do it. So again, it wasn't the guy that got hit or the guy that fell down. It was the guy that got rolled up on. It was Jordyn that had been, I would say, from last spring to where we are today, had a really, really good summer. Tank and I had talked about him repeatedly during the summer about the progress that he had made. Had a really good start to camp. Obviously competing inside for an interior guard position, and unfortunately, the severity of his injury is probably going to keep him out for the season. But I called him, talked to him yesterday afternoon. Got a chance to visit with his mom when she was driving in. I mean, he's very upbeat already. He's a kid of tremendous faith, tremendous character. The good Lord only challenges those that can handle it, and I think he's definitely one that can handle it and make the most of a bad situation.
How do you feel about your depth there?
Well, I'm glad that we've done two things, right? We acquired a grad transfer that's been able to come in and immediately kind of have an impact in there. Also, just the development of our guys. I like Pilstrom. He's a guy that, I watched literally change his demeanor and everything during the spring, and then just during the summer as a guy that's really continued to just grow. And now he looks like a Big Ten lineman, acts like a Big Ten lineman. We just got to make him play like a Big Ten lineman.
We got a chance to talk to James and Blake over the last few days, and they said you were kind of instrumental in putting the lads in the spotlight.
I'm not taking.
What's it like to have the two guys like that with that marketability and kind of the personality to lean into that a little bit?
First and foremost, they're tremendously talented players, right? Like, I could see on film from a year ago, and over the last couple of years, very talented players. James comes from a high school that I've been very close to in my coaching career, so I had actually been informed of him by his high school coaches and a history of theirs. So didn't know a lot about Blake coming in, and the third, I guess, unofficial part of the lad group would be Hugh, and he's been awesome too, right? But I just went to those two when we went to media days, right? I was going to take 3 players, and I really wanted to take one of those guys, but you couldn't take one without the other, and I wasn't going to take 2 specials. You guys would have got pissed at me. So I just went to him. I said, hey, I'm going to reference you and talk about you because they're really 2 special kids. And in fact, they're both born on foreign territory and are born out of this country, just so unique. So I said, hey, I came up with a couple different things, something like the foreign or the international specialist association, ISA. Everybody's got cool little initials. And I said, hey, whatever you come up with within reason, I'll back you up. So they came up with the lads. So I've tried to use it and capitalize it. But the best thing is you can give them whatever catchphrase you want to give, and their production is what's going to matter. And they're really, truly special. Things that I know as a head coach, we'll really try to game plan around to take advantage of situations game-wise. They both just amaze me with their skill set, but also B, their awareness. Like a lot of times, I always just tell kickers or punters, I want you to execute what we ask you to execute at the highest level. And these guys take it to different extremes. Blake will talk about different things in the punting game I've never heard a player talk about, both at the college level and professional. So their skill level and their mental capacity is off the charts.
What's the biggest thing you've felt like you've been able to do through the first 4 days, Brett?
I've been very pleased with the health factor. Obviously, on the other side of Jordyn yesterday, we've been pretty, there's going to be a guy or two. It's a violent game, right? We got a guy today that dislocated his finger. He went off, popped it back in, got taped, and he's playing, right? So, I think there's a lot of the mentality that these guys are playing with, training with. And again, we install in a certain phase elements of the game that it's just one day they try to absorb. And it's like when we say keep stacking days, it's not the physical nature. It's what I told you on Monday, you have to remember Tuesday. What I told you on Monday and Tuesday, you have to remember on Wednesday. What I told you Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, they have to remember on Thursday. And that sounds like easy at times, but it's hard as a football player that's never really thought of it that way to keep doing it, and I don't want to slow them down by thinking them too much. So I just like their approach so far in that matter.
Has your philosophy changed over the years in terms of hitting in practice or how you structure things, and how did the NFL shape that if it did?
Well, it twofold, right? The rules are completely different than my first year, 13 years ago as a head coach, or whatever it was, 16 years, whatever it is. This is my 13th year as a head coach. So the rules are tremendously different. I do think the NFL the last 3 years has now trickled into college football as far as, like, I think I was talking with an NFL head coach the other day, and I don't believe they could put pads on until day 7. We could do it on day 6, right? So there's probably a reason those are very similar. I think they're looking at that model quite a bit. There's a lot of similarities when we were in the spring. They carried into some of the stuff we did in the spring in the NFL. I've also taught these guys, right, it's not the intensity or the violence of the hit. It's being able to understand how to play the game with your shoulder pads and your helmet, and your shoulder and your foot, all the little things, keeping your head out of it, keeping your eyes up. I took D. Smith, who had, I believe, 3 targetings last year, right, and put him in a different number. Hey, let's play differently as a player, and just give guys mental recourse of how they can change their demeanor of the past.
Brett, we heard about Tank's summer program. I think physically you can see body transformations now. And how impressed have you been about that all-in factor with your guys? Tank can do so much, but the guys have to be committed as well.
Yeah, I think they have. They began to see themselves change. So our program, we believe in development, right? So when we first got here, I put in an 8-week. Me and Tank sat down. Tank and I sat down and worked out an 8-week training regimen that allowed him to maximize their growth. Then we went into a 5-week spring ball segment, and then we came back with another 8-week, and we really wanted them to know, hey, what you didn't take advantage the first time, let's make sure we do that this time. And the transformation of a lot of those guys was very, very visible in that second 8-week summer. So one of the things I always say, the only thing better than one summer program is 2. That's why we do 2 8-week programs. I think not just the physical element of it, but the mental side of it. We took conditioning after practice today, and not one guy batted an eye. Everybody jumped into it. I really stressed them. We got to give them a 3-hour break, and we want to give them that break. So I wanted them to know, everybody in this country, right? All the other Division I, every school in the Big Ten, they got practice for. They may not be there yet. We get to play a little bit earlier, so we get to practice early. But our practice number 4 is the same as everybody else's. The difference is, what do we do with that practice? And I think that's a big point. I want those guys to understand. Everybody has the same number of practices. Everybody has the same number of opportunities. It's about what you do with that opportunity that matters.
Coach Sidney talks about having any added confidence because of all the physicality that you're having in practice and tapping and hitting. Have you kind of sensed that at all from the players in the last couple of days at all?
I think the players are confident, right? Like, but bottom line, we haven't won a lot of games, right? So, like, you want to make them understand what they're doing and how it pays off. But the math has to add up, Sidney may think it's physical, right? But I haven't seen it be a real physical camp at this point, right? We're going to play our first time in pads on Saturday. It's just awareness. He's done everything I asked him to do. He's really, been a fun kid to be around, and I've learned from him in a variety of different ways. But if it's been physical so far, they're gonna think it's at a different level next week.
How do you go about building that up to the next level of physicality as pads go on and continue throughout camp?
Well, I think tolerance and be smart on what you're doing. If it's maybe before we might have gone 120 play scrimmage. Right now maybe we go an 80 play scrimmage, and we do conditioning afterwards, because once they get it, they get it. They don't need to reinforce with it. I think you got to be smart about what you practice with. You have to teach them to practice well. Case in point, like we just saw with Jordyn, right? With the more we can play on our feet, the game of football is played on our feet. I told our guys after practice number 2 in the evening, a lot of times I'll bring out things I heard or saw at practice, and when we were in the middle of a drill, there was a bunch of guys that had fallen on the ground. I heard one of our veteran players make reference to stay up. The game of football is played on our feet, not on the ground. And I've said that a bunch, and when your players start regurgitating, it means much more when it comes from them than it does from me.
Coach, everybody likes to hear about the true freshmen and newcomers. Are there a handful of guys that jumped out at you that look like they could contribute this year?
Yeah, I'm also a guy that doesn't like to build undue pressure, right? But I would tell you this, there's not a kid that we brought in this segment that we just brought in, the 14 guys we brought in, of the freshmen out of that class, that doesn't at least show me that they got something, right? I mean, the DBs, all of them move well. They're gonna, you're gonna want some things. You'll see them get exposed. Samari Collier's got a live arm. Josh McCray is a very, very gifted player. The wide receivers, Pat Bryant is definitely got a skill set. I really like Kreutz as an old lineman. He's a tough, hard-nosed, intense. Like I got him into some special teams drill. I worked the shield, and he definitely is a guy that's got some intensity to him. So there's definitely parts of it. He's as a personal protector could do some things. So I'm excited to see where he goes.
With the two transfer safeties, Prather Hudson and Eddie Smith.
Yeah, Prather is with us in the spring, has continued to grow and really, in my opinion, develop a skill set from the spring to where we are now that's much more in tune with what Ryan's asking him to do. We didn't get a chance to work Eddie until he came in midway through the summer, and then he's really probably the last 2 days got the most amount of reps, been very positive. He's a guy that I think now he realizes this is his second opportunity in college football. Jafar Armstrong showed up today and made a nice touchdown grab, and then did a nice job of blocking on the perimeter. And then who's the other one? Those three guys really. Oh, and then Jack Podobniak. I'd say those four guys, the four guys that we really kind of took, and then Brandon Hohenstein is a kid that we got that has been in college football now 4 years. He's definitely going to be able to help us. Peyton Vining, another young man, right, that came in. So the use of that transfer portal has been pretty important for this upcoming year.
What's your personal approach to practice? Like, what do you like to do? Like, how do you like to handle practice?
I usually in my sheet, blue is usually what I write before, red is what I write during, and I usually have it scripted out on my sheet where I want to go during practice, but I'll make an adaptation, right? Like we talk about family all the time, and Coach Boo's two young boys were in the crowd today, and Luke and Logan, and they were watching their dad. They were locked in, and I just went over. They both started to tackle football, so I walked over and just asked them how practice was going, and like to me that's a relief, right? I'll make adaptations like that all the time. We'll have a visitor, Josh will bring somebody over, or somebody will come in. I always usually say hey to them, but I usually don't get involved unless I really know something's. I took this from Coach Fry a long time ago, right? As a head coach, never ignore something you know, and never pretend to coach something you don't, right? So, I hire these coaches to be great coaches at their positions. They're good at what they do. I don't want to interfere, especially in front of players. We'll take time to watch practice in the evening together, or a drill, or a certain phase of practice that I want to address, but that's usually in closed settings.
Brett, when we talked to Chase Hayden, he was telling me that you haven't changed much since recruiting him to Arkansas, but I guess how have you seen him change in the years since getting back?
Chase, I can remember being in that home the first time, right? I remember seeing him on film. I literally thought his freshman year was one of the more impressive freshman year of a back, and I've had a lot of really good backs, right? We were recruiting a young running back the other day, and I just kind of went down from P.J. Hill to John Clay to Monty Ball to James White to Melvin Gordon to Alex Collins and Jonathan White, and then there's a guy that unfortunately wasn't able to finish his career at Arkansas. Might have been the best of all of them. And I just kind of go down that list, and I realized I've been around some really, really special running backs, and I thought about halfway through Chase's freshman year, he could have been one of the more significant ones I had. Obviously, the powers that be separated us, but I was excited when the opportunity came here that I reached out to him and he had interest. I think even from the spring to where we are now, he's made a jump from last spring. Conscientious, detailed, got definitely a skill set. Him and Sid, probably a little bit similar body type skill sets. Reggie's a little more compact. Norwood's completely different back, so I like the way that pool is kind of shaping up.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.